Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming to my talk. My name is Naveed Farro. I'm an artist and filmmaker based here in Nam. I want to acknowledge that this talk is taking place on the land of the Wurundjeri and Wurrung people, along with the neighboring Bunurong and Bunurong and Wada Kulin nations. I wish to pay my respects to the incredible resistance of First Nations people who continue to fight tirelessly against ongoing colonial rule. I extend my respects to the ancestors and elders past and present, and to any First Nations people here today. The sovereignty was never ceded. So, my talk today is going to be about Iranian art archives and histories through new imaging technology. Essentially, I want to invite you all to my journey over the past few years of creating a digital hybrid arts practice in order to more deeply understand my Iranian ancestral heritage. For much of my life, I lacked a meaningful grasp of the aesthetics and histories of my people, so this critical pursuit has proven intrinsically rewarding for us, fostering a renewed connection to my family and to the broader Iranian diaspora. The framework I developed throughout this process has also deepened my engagement with art making, philosophy, etymology, fieldwork, museums, and technology. I want to recognize the privilege that has enabled this journey, especially while the current dictatorship of Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, are killing innocent protesters by the thousands in the past few weeks alone. People who just want a more democratic society. As a second-generation Iranian refugee, I was fortunate to be born in so-called Australia. Although I have never been to Iran, I now hold the privilege of being able to access the North Atlantic institutions that I seek to critically examine in this talk. Ultimately, these projects I'm going to show aim to explore how contemporary imaging technologies, such as photogrammetry and augmented reality, can provide a new form of three-dimensional access to Iranian visual cultures. It seeks first to contribute to current discourse and practice in presenting archive-focused contemporary art, and second, to make artifacts and fragments from Iranian art archives and built environments accessible to audiences through galleries in Nam. For Iranian communities and individuals in similar situations to myself, this would be more meaningful. People who would otherwise not be able can view cultural artifacts made inaccessible by war, migration, money, or political circumstances. So this is a work I created based off a 3D scan I obtained from personal messaging an Iranian 3D technician on Instagram. Because the Iranian government shut down the internet at the time of the file transfer, basically because they didn't want its citizens to share their human rights violations, the video the 3D technician sent was merely 4 megabytes and took a few days to transfer. This internet blackout of the entirety of Iran happened a few weeks ago as well, and it is estimated about 30,000 protesters have been murdered by the Islamic regime since then, with accurate numbers difficult to determine due to this lack of communication. The scan is part of the entrance of one of Iran's more famous pieces of architecture, the Shah Mosque in Isfahan, completed in 1629. The building's mosaic tiles and striking calligraphy contribute to its high regard as an extraordinary testament to the level of social and cultural life in Iran during the Safavid era. The blue tiles in Islamic ornamentalism is meant to convey a relaxing quality in that aesthetic realm. So this is a video recording from one of the smart glass headsets that allows for augmented reality experiences, the Microsoft HoloLens. It shows how I built a 1:2 scaled aluminium sculpture with the aid of augmented reality. The sculpture is called Shah Mosque Makanis, Makanis being the Farsi and Arabic word for the style of ceiling employed. The technology allowed me to use a line tracing model of the 3D scan and convert it into a physical sculpture by showing me each bend for the entirety of the sculpture and labeling the large amounts of pieces accordingly, which I attached together with cable ties. The local company who designed this app and workflow is called Follogram, who came out of RMIT Architecture School. The arduous process of building this fairly disposable looking sculpture, taking roughly 4 months to create, gave me a deeper sense of respect and praise of the great builders of Iran. When you look at an image of this ceiling, its complexity makes it difficult to decrypt its essential form. But through this scan and AR process, I was able to understand its true form accurately and effectively gained knowledge transfer through these new technologies. So in 2023, I was lucky to be able to present my first solo exhibition, The Pool, at the Immigration Museum in the month of June. I included an audio field recording from the same area the sculpture and video artwork depicts in Isfahan, and it's played on speakers within the exhibition space. I also flooded the space in blue light to emanate that relaxing blue quality in Islamic ornamentalism. So this is a recent artwork based off the same Makanis. I basically mirrored the ceiling and created an inversion well-like effect on the white museum plinth. I wanted to formally represent how I feel about the North Atlantic art canon and how they have left out a lot of Middle Eastern aesthetics and histories within its institutions, evoking a sort of absence or void below you rather than its traditional spatial operation, whereby you stand under its mammoth size and gaze upon celestial complex geometries. I also made one based off a mini marble Makanis ceiling I saw while doing fieldwork in Istanbul. It's based off an Ottoman-era public water fountain that many would find respite at. Makanis is a common design feature across the Islamic world and a uniquely Islamic innovation. It was developed in Iraq and Iran sometime in the 9th or 10th century, and from there it spread quickly to places as far as Spain and India. I just want to show a video of some fieldwork I conducted at the Louvre and British Museum, a video essay.
The general lack of physically tangible Iranian cultural artifacts and artworks in Naam or Melbourne led me to conduct fieldwork at the British Museum in London and the Louvre in Paris. Both institutions hold a significant collection of Iranian artifacts and artworks throughout its vast history. For instance, the ancient palace of Darius in Susa, part of the revered ancient metropolis of Iran, was partially reconstructed in fragments across 3 large gallery spaces at the Louvre. Until that point, I had only studied the 6th century BCE built environment through digital images. Entire palace walls, primarily displaced through the excavation led by French archaeologist Marcel Auguste Dieulafoy, now stood in this French treasure chest of a gallery for diverse audiences to visit at a fee of €22. Born in 1844 and passing in 1920, Dieulafoy was known best for his excavations at Susa, modern-day Shush, Iran. My leftist-leaning brain jumped to the conclusion that all these objects were plundered by the French. While I filmed these images on my iPhone in 4K like a tourist, I thought to myself, what the fuck were all my people's artifacts doing in Paris? I decided to investigate the provenance. The negotiation process for the artifacts that are now in the Department of Oriental Antiquities at the Louvre are as follows. The Persian government at first refused to authorize the excavations, but the intervention of Tholozan, then official physician to the Qajar court, made the difference. Permission was granted on the condition that the tomb of Daniel must not be touched except for repairs, for which the French government would be responsible at its own expense. The antiquities discovered were to be divided between the two countries, with the exception of those made of precious metals, which were all to be turned over to the Persian government. The Persian government subsequently waived its right to share in the finds, however, apparently because they consisted mainly of bricks and stone fragments. Assuming the authenticity and provenance of these various artifacts, the relocation of these items to the Louvre is beneficial, particularly given the significant deterioration of the original site post-excavation. While being funded by resources outside of Iran, the Louvre's renowned conservation experts ensure the preservation of these Iranian artifacts. Furthermore, the location offers the cultural advantage of concluding a day of fieldwork with French cuisine, adding a celebratory aspect to the rigorous mental labor of fine art research. Over the 3 days I spent in these spaces, I observed hundreds of Iranians marveling at the royal propaganda of our ancient kings. Selfies were taken, and awkward smiles were exchanged among the crowd. The bricks were reassembled in all its glory, the original colored glazing glistening in the tungsten lights. A sense of pride permeated the atmosphere. However, for a select few there was a clear sense of disappointment. I also felt a sense of ambivalence while I was there. With no plans to travel to Iran due to the current political climate, this was the closest I could get to this ancient palace I've only read about in books. Jane Dieulafoy was a French archaeologist, explorer, novelist, feminist, and journalist. She was the wife of Marcel Auguste Dieulafoy. She and her husband excavated the ancient Persian city of Susa together. From there, they traveled widely through Persia to Tehran, Esfahan, and Shiraz. Jane Dieulafoy documented the pair's explorations in photographs, illustrations, and writing. She took daily notes during her travels, which were later published in 2 volumes. The transfer of the found objects to France caused considerable damage to the findings of Iranian archaeological excavations. Jane Dieulafoy says in her memoir about the Apadana Palace in Susa, "Yesterday I watched the large stone bull found in recent days with great regret, weighing about 12,000 pounds. It is impossible to shake such a huge mass. Eventually I could not overcome my anger, grab a sledgehammer and fall into the rock. I hit it with a savage blow. The head of the column is broken as a result of a sledgehammer struck like a ripe fruit. Yikes."
Okay. So, this act underscores the destructive consequences of colonial era archaeology, where historical artifacts were often treated as trophies rather than cultural heritage to be preserved in their place of origin. That if I can't have it, no one can colonial mindset. I think it's worth mentioning that France basically did like a long-term residency for Khomeini before taking him back to Iran for the 1979 revolution on a private Air France charter, adding to this ambivalence I feel about the whole situation. It's like good, it's bad, it's really, it leaves a sour taste, but it was also a good time. I don't know how to explain it. So these images on screen now are from Iranian archaeologist and artist Dorish Yusufzadeh. He worked with me to create an archive which is ongoing for audiences in Nam to visit. This photo is from a site near Persepolis, and it shows a similar bull fragment from the palaces at Susa, which were built concurrently in ancient Iran. With my technical support, he sent me 3D scans to reimagine the works from this dig site at Matter Gallery last year. Persepolis was the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, built by Darius I around 518 BC, as a monumental center for ritual, diplomacy, and imperial display. It stood as a symbol of Persian power until its destruction by Alexander the Great in 330 BC, marking the end of one of the ancient world's largest empires. It is often referred to by Iranian nationalists with great pride when reflecting on its history. This striking black and white photography shows the mountain relief of Nakhsh-i-Rostam, an ancient necropolis located about 12 kilometers northwest of Persepolis, Iran. The vast cliff face has an array of mammoth-sized reliefs carved into the mountain, symbolizing the mighty propaganda of all the prominent ancient Persian kings. And this Persepolis palace relief of a lion attacking a bull is a reoccurring motif symbolizing royal power and seasonal renewal that aligns with Nowruz, the Iranian New Year, which is still celebrated today on the spring equinox. So with the 3D data I obtained from Iran, I was able to 3D print these built environment fragments at a 1-to-1 scale. The process was an arduous one, which involved a lot of screw and epoxy glue and paint. I was able to CNC cut the palace relief before painting over it. The process of digitally replicating it was an interesting one to me. It left physical artifacts that looked like computer glitches in the foam, showing the inherent problems in this copying process, similar to what Hito Styrel discusses in the constant destruction of quality through JPEG image transmissions on the internet. Areas that the machine could not reach due to its limited access angle were refined by hand using plaster and traditional sculptural techniques. So I wanted to show this idea of the glitch and virtuality by presenting the works on a warped, mirrored surface to show the reflection of these objects and the white cube that surrounds it in an obscured way. These are Dorish's striking photographs mounted within the space. And ultimately, the sculptures in the exhibition were painted entirely white to allow them to blend into the white cube of the gallery space. This choice was a deliberate reflection on my engagement with the North Atlantic archives, evoking the idea of the objects dissolving into the institutional whiteness of the gallery walls. Furthermore, the complexity of my engagement with Iranian history was visually articulated through the application of a buff layer to my sculptures, a method commonly used in urban environments to obscure unwanted revolutionary graffiti, common to built environments in Iran, but also recently to galleries in this part of the world. I tagged both built environment copies, then self-censored myself with paint, as you can see on the nose of the bull there. Just want to end with an animation of A1 Bakery. So this is what began my archival hybrid digital practice, where I 3D scanned A1 Bakery. I wanted to archive a special place to me in my everyday life at the time in 2019. That gave me a sense of community from the friendly exchanges, smiles and nods of the Lebanese staff that thought I was probably Lebanese. Nevertheless, it felt pretty good. I just moved to Nam and found really great joy in this space. So this animation is focusing on the people in the queue and the ghostly forms it created on the LiDAR process of a diverse, happy community waiting for the delicious spinach triangles, forever immortalized in this personal point cloud archive. And with that, I thank you all for listening to my presentation.